Okay. We should be live on Facebook in like 2 seconds. Assuming the gods are with us. On keyboard. I wonder it wasn't working. Here. Okay, I'm gonna have to really juggle because none of the like comments thing or anything are gonna be working now. So we'll wing it. No, that's the wrong one. Let's try that again. Come on. Is that us? Hello, I'm just trying to make sure I can see the screen. Yes, okay, that's the right one. And I don't need to hear myself 3 times. Twice is more than enough. Oh, Amy. Amy found us. Amy, we're having a good night here.
Amy, did you have to really look?
Let's see here. All right. So why don't you explain while I try to get some commenting up.
Okay. So we're going to be shortly restarting the prototyping where things start to get real because Facebook dropped and then subsequently everything dropped. So we're trying to get back up. So if you caught the first couple of slides, feel free to take a bathroom break, a bio break, get a cup of tea, cup of coffee, some ice cream, whatever floats your boat. But we're going to be starting it over for those folks who will be watching it, on the replay. So we're going to start from the top, from the slides, whenever Kathleen's ready to go. So just give me the heads up, Kath.
All
when
right.
You're set.
I think we're as good as we're going to get. Okay. So let me bring it up. Let's see. Okay.
There's our lovely
deep cleansing breath.
A cleansing breath. Smoke them if you got them. Okay. Let's start off by giving you as you can catch us, but let's start off by giving the definition of a prototype. Once again, if you didn't like it the first time, you're going to love it the second time around. A prototype is a rough draft that allows you to test or validate proposed solutions, explore ideas and options, definitely with stakeholders and customers or users, and show the intention behind a feature or the overall design concept before investing time and money into development, because that's what it's all about, that saving that money. This is also called comps or comprehensive layout or just comprehensive. And prototypes are in different variations depending on, what part there are different aspects of the intended design, and they typically, they can happen over and over again, but a lot of times they sort of start in order. Like a proof of principle prototype is just something that says, is this feasible to do? And it shows some key functional aspects of the intended design, but it does not have all the functionality of the final product. And it can be anything from sketches to 3D type of printer product that comes out, but it's definitely just to see, is this an option? Is this going to work in the real world? And you may have several of them before you actually get down to a little further in the design process. A visual prototype represents the size and appearance, but not the functionality of the intended design. So this could be wireframes or comprehensive sketches, again, work, but it's something visual that gets everybody on the same page, much like the proof of principle. As Kathleen had said before we cut out, everybody brings their own ideas to the table and their own vision. So getting everybody on the same page is key. So that's where a visual prototype is really important. A form study prototype is a preliminary type of visual prototype in which geometric features of a design are emphasized with less concern for color or texture or other aspects of the final appearance. So it could just be big blocks of information or blocks of a layout. The user experience prototype represents enough of the appearance and function of the product, and can be used further for users to research and take a look at. And that's where Kathleen is her wheelhouse, where she really likes to be in that spot. The functional prototype captures both the function and the appearance of the intended design, though it may be created with different types and even different scale from what the final design will be. And the working prototype represents all or nearly all the functionality of the final product. That's where you tend to get a little pushback from management and developers. But, as Kathleen said, once you get good enough at this type of thing, you won't need a developer to help you with a working prototype. You can actually get something up and running, even if it's just a click through. And but again, working prototypes by developers, a lot of times developers and management look at that as, wasted time and wasted product if they don't go with that particular design. But there is ways around that, and Kathleen can give you a little more information on that, as she will want to do. Right, Kathleen?
Yeah, you could say this is one of my favorites.
You could
Okay,
say.
so let's just talk for a second. So the proof prototype is something that generally is used very early on in the process. Usually you're throwing a bunch of ideas around, and this is the best way to get everybody thinking about and arguing about or agreeing to the same general rough ideas. This is like the rough sketch on the whiteboard or on a piece of paper or whatever, just real rough and quick. The visual prototype is good to bring in when you're then taking those initial ones and talking to people that maybe aren't as comfortable or haven't been exposed to the early parts of this process before. It's got a little bit more of the pieces that they're used to seeing. They don't have to try to decipher somebody's scribbles. It's a little bit more organized and neat, and then you scribble on top of it. But it gets them going in the right direction. The user experience prototype is something that you can use, and I find really valuable and really something you just can't skip when you're doing something to a new audience, if you're introducing a brand new tool or new functionality, or if you're just expanding into an area where maybe you haven't been before. So this is something that, again, it doesn't have to be completely done. It can just be printouts, but it needs to have enough of the recognizable elements that they're used to seeing on the web so that you can either walk them through or you can put it in front of them and say, okay, if you were going to do X, where would you click, and have them point on the piece of paper or the sketch or whatever, to actually walk through and figure out if what you're expecting them to comprehend is what they're comprehending. These can be very different things. The functional prototype is where you're starting to get into the nitty gritty. You're pretty much got a general idea of where you're heading, where things are going to be, and now you're getting down to more specifics about maybe roles or fields that are displayed or dependencies, that kind of thing. And then the working prototype is something that you can use, again, very good also with users again, but also with your subject matter experts. You say, okay, we think that this is the process, you do this, this, and this is what you'll see. And everybody gets a much better feel for the flow without you having to build the system and then find out you were wrong. And yes, I agree 100%. Many teams need to go and get a developer's time in order to do this. But at this point in time, the more you know about HTML5 and CSS3, the less you need a developer to do this stuff, because you can do a lot of it yourself once you're comfortable working in that kind of environment, and that way you keep everybody happy because you're not having to fight to get a developer's time. So that's my 2 cents on this one. Anything else you want to throw in there?
Well, the functional and the working prototypes, before we lost connectivity there, we use those a lot with customers. So if we're going out to a customer, especially if you have a product, an application that maybe a customer might be licensing, we'll tweak those functional prototypes and working prototypes so that it gives a more custom feel for the client. So you can pop those type of things in to make them actually look quite real, even though they're not. And we've done that in the past.
Your sound is dropping again. Remember we were having that problem yesterday?
Well,
and now your sound is gone.
Huh. And I'm not on a mic.
Huh. All right.
There
Hopefully enough got
must be
through.
might be something with the control board there. Can you
No, I
hear
don't
me
think
now?
so. No, I can hear you, but you keep dropping, and it's not the control board because it's exactly what was happening last night when we tested, and I wasn't on this system then. Maybe run a quick speed test, and I'll take the next slide.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. While she's testing, so there's basically two levels of prototypes. Of course, there's shades of gray in between. But basically, you have the low fidelity. I think these should be the other order. Low fidelity is where you start. So that's the rough sketch, the scribble on the board. It's just something rough. There's not a lot of details, not a lot of polish, and they're the ones that generally get thrown away because that's what they're intended for. They're intended to quickly throw the ideas around, get everybody looking at them, and then move on. And the ones that live will turn into high fidelity, but the other ones at least serve their purpose by moving the conversation along. High fidelity are the ones that have that more polished look. They look like what you expect the final product to look like. Sometimes they're too good, and people think that means the product is done, which you have to manage. But basically, those are the two pieces. Now, I'm going to just show you real quick. Give me one sec as I jump out of this. And I'm just going to show you some examples because, again, I keep saying that you need visuals, and that's what we're talking about here. So let me see if I can get the zoom in on here. This is when I wish I had another set of hands. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay, and if I go in here, I think I should be able to zoom in. No, maybe not. Oh, here we go. Is this not? Here we go. Okay, so this is just a quick example of a really rough, not quite, it's not a hand sketch, obviously, but it's a very rough, no bells and whistles kind of an example of a layout where, you're not married to anything here, you're just communicating the idea. Let me go back here. Oops. Let me try. Oh, here, reset. Huh. It's the obvious button. All right, let me show you just a couple more, just to kind of get the picture in your head. Where did I put that? Okay. You don't really need to see. So this is more in that shades of gray area. There's still not a lot of detail here, but you're starting to get a feel for where pieces are going to be and what's going to be text and what's going to be an image. And then what I always do, let me make this go away. There we go. At this point, I start to put little notes next to things so that I don't forget later on as I go along. But also because what tends to happen is the subject matter experts are in the room and we're talking about all these kinds of things, but they often want to go back to their team with something to discuss some particular part. So having these little notes here helps remind them what it was that we were talking about. And here's just another one. This is starting to look more real, more like what the final app was going to look like. This is actually a mobile thing. And same thing here. Now this is really starting to look like what it's going to look like out in the world. But of course it's still just paper scratches, and so we can continue to make changes very, very cheaply. All right, bring that back up. All right, did you want to take this one, Mary, or you want me to keep going?
Can you hear me, Cap?
You're frozen
Can you
again.
hear me? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Okay, I'll just keep going. All right, so the advantages to doing prototyping is that, first of all, it is fast. You can churn through a lot of ideas, you can make a lot of progress quickly, and of course that means cheaply. It is inexpensive. You can do it literally with a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper and nothing else, just your lovely brains. Or, just a whiteboard. I mean, really, it doesn't require, heck, if you've got crayons in the back of an envelope, you can go ahead and do some prototyping. And because of all that, is highly flexible. Now, you do end up having to redo things several times, of course, because these are not movable pieces. But as ideas are being thrown out, you can throw, more scribbles on, or you can do things in different colors to show different ideas on the same piece of paper. So you've got a lot of flexibility this time. A lot of ideas can come across, and they're easy to throw out. I also find this to be really valuable for team building. I've learned over time that when things start to get a little stressed and people start to feel like they're being left out, it's an excellent time to do a little prototyping, because you can get everybody in the room, everybody's engaged, everybody's being heard, and kind of helps get over some rough spots sometimes. And there's never a bad time to do prototyping. It is the kind of thing that you're going to do multiple sessions of. So might as well kill two birds with one stone. Hey, come on, we're working on these ideas. Come in, give us your thoughts. Let's toss some ideas around. And it becomes, as you saw, documentation. Whether you're just doing scribbles on the whiteboard, as long as you take a picture of them, now they're documentation. Same thing with doing it on a piece of paper or whatever. You scan that, take a picture of it, you've got it for the archive, you can throw it in a folder and have it to refer back to later. Because what will happen is over time, people will choose a path, say yes to this, no to that, and then, in a couple of weeks, they'll be like, well, what about this? Oh, you can say, oh, you mean that thing you said no to? Okay, let's revisit that, and you bring it back out again, and either they remember why they said no, or given the information they've accumulated over the time, they now see that maybe that is a good idea. So I don't ever throw anything out. Hard drives are cheap, so I make sure that I keep copies of everything, because I don't think I've ever been in a project where I didn't go back in and end up reusing something that they had told us to throw out. How we doing, Mayor? Should we just keep going, or?
Yeah, I think there's something going on with the upload speed here, Kathleen. So just
okay. Well, you're actually pretty good now. If you want to jump in, and I'll just stop you if I lose your sound.
Okay, because it seems to be all over the place.
Yeah, you're good right now.
Alrighty. Are we on the disadvantages?
Yes, we are.
Unrealistic expectations. Well, that's a big one. Obviously, setting expectations is one of the biggest things we do as business analysts. And prototypes, we can give them all the bells and whistles that we want to. And when we're talking about different designs and create, when you start to go through the iterative process of the design, people begin to expect that this thing is going to be working in like a couple of weeks, because, you've got it all, especially if you're doing functional prototypes. They're like, well, you've got it there already. Why can't you just roll it out? And it's obviously far more complicated than that. So that can be an issue. And it can also cause possible confusion. Whether we're ready to go in 6 months, or is this functional, or, different perceptions as far as what the prototype will be able to do. If you don't have it in a complete stage yet, where you have, the bells and whistles, the colors, etc., when you get down to that point, people might be surprised or a little confused. And that's what comes to mind right away with the disadvantages of the prototypes. And there's some time involved too as well with that. But again, it could be our time as business analysts, but it is a little time consuming when you start getting into the designs side of the house, or giving them multiple options. And, sometimes people, it can be limited by your developers as well. You don't want to say that, but I mean, you may come up with some really great solutions, and you may have a bunch of junior developers, and things may not happen exactly. So they set a certain level of expectations. Hopefully the developers can live up to those expectations. So those are some of the disadvantages of prototypes.
And I'm not going to say a word.
Don't say, well, Yes. Don't.
No, I won't. I'm going to be good tonight, because clearly the tech gods are against us with all the problems we've had.
Yes.
Okay.
Why prototypes work? They're helpful because they let you test out ideas. They identify the good stuff, the bad stuff. You're able to quickly make changes, and it is relatively cheap. Far cheaper than developing and putting something out there and then having to do multiple releases to give people what they thought they wanted. And it is a great way to give customers multiple options for features, for solutions. It's an all-around great skill to have as a business analyst.
Makes you highly marketable.
Exactly.
Who doesn't love that idea? Okay, so as we discussed, there's a lot of different ways to do prototyping. There is no one right way. There is no rule that says just because you've already done sketches that you can't go back and do them when you've done a click-through. You want to use whatever works best in the moment for the discussions that you're having. But just to quickly recap, so generally you're going to either use sketches, wireframes, which are just literally lines and boxes with maybe minimal text, like, heading 1, heading 2, nothing specific. Lo-fi is like the next level of that. It's still a lot of lines and shapes, but maybe you're putting some titles in, or, you're saying, okay, this is going to have a picture here, and this is going to be a functional widget. When you get to the high fidelity ones, you start to get a little more detail. There's more headings. Maybe there's more navigation elements identified, that type of thing. When you get to a click-through, that can be either low or hi-fi, because you can do a click-through either with pieces of paper, and you have somebody point to something, and then you pull the next right page based on what they clicked on, or you can do it on online, whether your people are remote, or if you just want them to do it in a more realistic environment. You can just take literally images and go back to the old style of HTML, but you can do hotspots. And so when they click on it, that brings up the next image. There's nothing real. There's no serious coding. There's some tools online that'll let you do this. But again, it takes it up a level, starts to feel a little more real without actually having it coded, because that would be the next level. Now, frankly, there's a big movement now, and I've been doing this myself a lot, of doing your prototypes in code. Because again, you can do, not sketches so much, kind of, but wireframes, certainly low and hi-fi fidelity ones and click-throughs, you can do all those with quick and dirty HTML and CSS. You don't put any colors in, you don't get carried away with functionality, but, a little shading here, a little text here, and you get that kind of thing. So whatever combination works for you, your team, your skill set, your timelines, that's what you need. As long as you're doing something. And Mary already said this, I'm going to push this home again. As long as you do it, as long as you're giving people things to look at, you are going to be in a much better position as you go along than you would be without it. Because everybody's now looked at the same picture, and you're not worried again what picture is in their head and were they agreeing or disagreeing about the same thing. It's right in front of them, everybody's looking at it, and you're moving on from there. You want me to take this one, Mare? Or you want to do it?
Sure. I just have one thought when you were saying click through and how you can use the papers. I literally sit there and think of those little cartoons, they used to draw and then flip.
Yeah.
So if you could do that, draw a box and whoo, there you go. And, you can even do that. You got to get really creative to get your point across. That's all. That's what I was thinking of. Carry on.
Yeah, it can get a little hairy. I've done the paper prototyping, where you've got like a stack. Here, I've got to get my timer here. There we are. We got it like a stack of examples, and you take the first one off. That's the easy part, and you put it down in front of them, and you say, okay, if you were going to create a new account, where would you expect to start? And then they go and they click on something bizarre. Like, really? You wouldn't start with that or that? But you don't say that because you can't. So you have to have some like weird examples handy, but you've got to be able to move quickly. And this is the kind of thing that if you could have somebody helping you can be handy, especially if you've worked with them a long time and you think the same, like somebody we know. Because you're going to start shoving papers in and out because you don't want them to feel like they've done anything wrong, because the user can't do anything wrong. They're telling you what they would do. That can't be wrong. Okay, so clearly if they didn't do what you expected, then you need to go back and figure out how to make it clearer to them it is that you want them to do.
And it's a
little bit of a juggling.
Two people always help in case somebody opens the window and all those paper prototypes just go all over the room. Yeah. Somebody's got to lay on top of them, Well,
that's why I tend to go when I'm doing those kind of things. I don't really like using the regular paper that's in the printer most of the time. I like to go with slightly heavier stock because of that kind of thing, or, it's just easier to handle something that's a little heavier than those little normal lightweight pieces of paper. Also, I find fewer paper cuts.
Right,
and that matters. You don't want to be bleeding all over the stuff.
You can use the drawing, what people use for drawing, the sketchbooks. They have much heavier paper, so they're great to use too. But I digress.
It's a bit of a trade-off. I'm trying to think, was this in our place or was this the one before? There was one place I was working that all it would take was this basic onion skin paper. It had to be microscopically thin, and I wanted to use a very light cardstock, and I was always getting yelled at because every time I did it, the fifth print would just shut the machine down. So that was actually the first color printer I bought at home because I just got tired of having the argument in the office, and I would just do them at home because it was just easier. Right. Sometimes you just got to work around the system. Okay, I'm sorry. I went off on a rant there. All right, so did you want to take this one?
Well, either way, I can take it. It's fine. So there's plenty of tools out there. Like we said, whiteboard, sketching something on a whiteboard, get your point across. Terrific. We do it all the time. Do you want a select button? Do you want to drop down? It's just, when you get down to that level of minutia, whiteboards work well. Paper napkins, if you happen to be out at restaurants, we've done a lot of our best creative work when the entire team goes out somewhere. So napkins are always they work out too. Paper cutouts, pen and pencil and paper, Post-it notes with different sizes, different colors, UI, UX decks, printouts from your favorite graphic tools, any online shared prototyping tools. There's a lot of them out there. And as Kathleen said, HTML and CSS, once you're up at that level, if you're interested in that, and there is a lot to be interested in with that. So we would encourage you to check that out once you get your BA skills down pat, or if you've already got them down pat, start investigating that, because it gives you a lot of options to get your point across and give people a shared vision of what everybody's thinking or what you're thinking. There's all types of tools out there. So, get creative, have fun with it.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm just responding to somebody. Somebody found us after we crashed. Yay! Thanks, Say No. I appreciate that. That took effort.
That did take effort.
Before we move on, I just want to show you. I have lots of samples today and examples. Come on, screen. There we go. Okay. So, sometimes people are like, well, I don't have a whiteboard, I don't have whatever. So I wanted to show you this. So this is a little spiral-bound book that I've used because sometimes I go into situations, especially if I'm doing contracting, where I don't know what they've got or what kind of room we're going to put in. This is a portable whiteboard, basically. And you've got your little pen up here, and you do your little scribble. And then the cool thing is, it's got the, whoopsie, I gotta get in front of this. It's got a little eraser. I'm trying to do this backwards here. But anyway, you can go in and you can erase it. So this is a little handy thing. You can find these in stationery stores. Amazon's got it. They've got different sizes. But if you need to prototype on the run, this is handy. And you can get the pens in different colors. Woohoo! So this is the other thing that not everybody has seen, but they're, again, in certain situations, they're handy. So these are decks of cards that you can do to lay out when you're having discussions about UI. And they're just tiny little cards. And, on one side, they've got one image. It's not going to autofocus.
That's good. Yeah, you're good.
Like that. And then on the other side, they've got others, so they make very good use of the space. But if you're just looking to quickly, what are we going to include, what are we not? Okay, well, we know we need a login, and we can do this kind of a thing with it. Okay, do we need an admin panel? Okay, that would be something like this. So it's just another quick way, especially in the beginning when you're trying to decide what's in and what's out. This kind of thing can be very handy. I'm sorry, it's a little loud on the microphone. And there's different ones out there. This one takes it more from a standpoint of functionality or content. So, are you going to include tags? People are like, what are tags? Well, here, you show them this and they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that. Maybe you're talking about, well, we're thinking about maybe using a timeline or a dashboard. They don't know. Well, okay, well, that's a timeline. So instead of having to keep drawing these things all the time, when you get really good at using a deck like this, you'll find that it can be very, very handy. And they're not too expensive. I think they were like $20-$30 each. And along the same lines, there are other ones that are similar. But again, it's thinking about all the different possibilities, because the problem is people get into ruts. People become used to, okay, well, we've done this all the time, so we'll just keep doing this. So sometimes it's good to have other ideas that you could throw around. So, these cards have different patterns that you can think about using. Now, fill in the blanks are pretty easy, but, drag and drop. It goes in and out of fashion, but right now we're in a time where this is almost expected because everybody's so used to working on mobile. Little things like undo. It's the kind of thing, again, it keeps the conversation going. Progressive disclosures, these are also very popular, and a good idea now on mobile. People kind of expect them. It's the kind of thing that people coming into a meeting are not going to say, we need progressive disclosure. But when you show them something like that and you start to talk about it, because they may not even know what those words mean, but if you show them like a picture like this, they're like, oh, okay, I know what you mean. I've seen that. So it's just something else to think about. Sometimes it's handy to have in your toolkit. And
it's like flashcards for adults.
It is. I think that's basically the idea that they're coming off of.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, I bought these with my own money, and they are not paying me to say any of this. I'm not a shill. I'm just telling you what has worked for me in the real world, because that's what we're about here, is real world solutions.
That's right.
She's laughing at me because I'm on rants tonight.
No, I'm not. I'm laughing at both of us because, for people who don't know us, or for people, if you watch us long enough, you'll find out that like Staples is our plate. Like some people like to go to, to different like clothing. And no, we like Staples and any like new little gadgets that we can find to help us in our job. So
we've also done really well in Home Depot.
Yes. That's right. Oh my gosh.
You're only limited by your creativity.
That's right. And if you want to learn all these little tips and techniques, you just keep following us, because we've got a million.
We should do a live stream from Staples and Home Depot.
That's right. Stay tuned for that.
That off.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting punchy now. All right, let's get back on track. Sorry. I think you're up, right?
Well,
or me?
Sure.
It could be me. Well, I don't care.
Carry on then. Carry on.
Okay, I've lost track.
Prototyping tips. There you are.
Okay, so when it comes to prototyping, start early. Start before you even have meetings. Just working out the ideas in your own head. Do it often. You can't do it too often. As things change, as you start to get different perspectives about the users or the goals or how things are evolving, frankly, level of talent on your development team may impact your prototypes. So you do need, I couldn't let it go, Mayor. You do need to, be flexible and keep doing it and keep refining it. Don't fall in love with anything, because that's a bad thing. Don't take it personally. Things are going to change. And just repeat. That's definitely the key to success. And I believe that takes care of everything.
Okay.
Anything else you want to throw in, Mayor?
No, I think that's good for this evening. We had a couple of blips we dropped, and we had a redo. So it was like actually doing a real live TV show. We're like, hold on, timeout, start over. But we hope you enjoyed that.
And we thank you, the people who followed along from the original one that crashed and came back. You get extra points tonight. Thank you so much.
Where the points mean nothing. Yes. Did you get? Oh my gosh.
That's the improv show, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, what is it?
So
whose line is it anyway? That's what we've been doing all night.
The points mean nothing. Yeah, exactly. So we get, we're good tonight. So, to subscribe. So let's
remind them that they can get on our mailing list if they go to the BAZONE.com/mailing list. Very simple.
Yeah.
Put your email address in. And that way we can let you know about, we've been working on big plans for next year. We're getting very excited about what we're going to bring to you next year. And the best way to be the first ones to find out about it is to get on our insiders mailing list. There's a lot of stuff, and we would love your input. So if you have other ideas or whatever, feel free to jump on the mailing list and let us know what you're thinking. We can let you know what we're thinking, and then you can give us feedback. It's a good thing, back and forth. If you're looking for more information in general, we have a website. Everybody does. All the finest people do. So just go to BAZONE.com, and you can get all the information there that you need. And, of course, we're in all the usual places. Let me bring this back up again. Let me bring that down. So you can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, Periscope, Facebook, YouTube, and our lovely website. Okay, Mayor, I'll stop.
Nope. Yeah. Hey, feel the love. Feel the love. And make sure you pencil us in next week when we're going to be talking about focus groups. And that would be the last series in our 10-part series. So be sure to pencil in your calendar next Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I think that about wraps up the show. We'll be back next Tuesday, and we hope you'll join us there. And thank you again for being patient with the technical difficulties and following us. And please remember to tag us to all of your friends, your family, coworkers, strangers on the train, and the guy who sleeps on your couch that you can't seem to get rid of. Anyone who will find this content helpful.
It's and as always, icebreaker at parties. Have you seen the latest BAZONE?
Yes. Whee! Okay, and as always, we're here to help you own the zone of business analysis. And thanks again for coming by. And see you next time on the BAZONE Live. Kathleen, take us out.
I'll try.
Somebody else should take us out.